Hello, my name is James Bowling, and this will be my oral presentation for BIO121. My presentation will cover United States pollution regulations and the laws behind them. So the United States is actually one of the most controlled countries in the entire world in a lot more than one way. One way being pollution regulations. We are a very, very regulated country in every aspect, but pollution being one of the highest ones. There are policies enacted that control everything that pollutes into the air at all, into the air, into the ground, into our water. Any form of pollution is regulated in the United States, both on a commercial and a individual level. There are a lot of things in the United States that are working with the policies we have enacted now, and there are some that simply don't work or don't work enough to be justified to take away the freedom that it takes away from the factories, the workers there, the business owners, and us individuals. There are a lot of regulations that the United States allow to happen. They go completely unregulated. Pollution that ranges from methane all the way to the burning of materials in general that release carbon monoxide into the air. There are many townships, especially local around here, that there are no regulations against burning anything. You can burn whatever you want, and whatever toxic chemicals it releases into the air, there's no laws against that in certain specific areas. There are also no regulations in comparison to other countries where there are regulations on methane that is released by cows in agriculture. Other countries have many, many forms of regulation, whether it be policy or whether it be laws enacted. There has been policy introduced to limit how much methane can be released by one farmer or a set of farmers owned by the same company at a time, or in a month, or in a year. In the United States, there is no such law. However, the EPA has lifted a lot of regulation in the past few years because overall particle pollution has actually decreased. It was a lot higher in the past. This is a quote from EPA.gov that proves this point. It says, although levels of particle pollution and ground level ozone pollution are substantially lower than in the past, levels are unhealthy in numerous areas of the country. Well, this seems like a negative. It's actually a gross positive because, as it reads, pollution overall is decreased. It was a lot higher about 100 years ago than it is now. At the start of the Industrial Revolution, it was when it was actually its highest, before the factories actually started to produce the greenhouse gases and let them into the air. However, the EPA does like to regulate some things that don't matter as much as others do. The number one most relatable thing for me and you would be cars, especially in California. They had just passed a law earlier this year that completely outlawed any modification to a Californian's exhaust. So that means no more straight pipes, no more mufflers, no more anything that was not from the factory. The reason for that is to control, pollution as a whole and carbon monoxide emissions from the exhaust. The problem is the effect of doing this has been absolutely minuscule. It has gone down by less than 0.1% since they've enacted the law, the original law in 2009, which they basically outlawed the banning of mufflers. So you have to have a muffler in your car in the state of California. Some states are wishy-washy about it. Ours, you also have to have a muffler, but theirs is a little bit different. It actually filters out a lot of the carbon monoxide that would be let out into the air. Cars have to be fitted with those out there, and that is extremely expensive. That is one of the reasons why people in California don't buy cars from California, because they are so expensive. In 2009, California passed a law that required each individual car made before that day in 2009 to go through a smog test. The smog test was to make sure that your car wasn't emitting too much pollution into the air, and if it didn't pass the smog test, then they were going to take your license plate off, and you would no longer be allowed to drive in the state of California. There's a couple problems with that. The number one being, this car right here is a 2006 Toyota Corolla. There's no emissions smog test. There's no special muffler on this car because it was made before the year 2009. On the other hand, this is a 2010 Silverado 1500. This has what's called active fuel management. In 2009, the United States government passed a law requiring mass auto producers such as Ford, GM, and Chrysler to be more environmentally friendly. So the way behind that was, when you're going down the highway in a vehicle like this, 4 of your cylinders out of 8 will shut down. The problem with that is it was a very, very new design, and every car made by GM between 2007 and 2011 has this on it. It's called active fuel management. However, at about 100,000 miles in every one of these vehicles, the engines blow up because they were not prepared. The internal engine parts were not ready to forego such abrupt disclosure of their cylinders. So when you turn this truck on, it starts. When you go to the hood and pop the hood, due to the EPA regulations, there's now a tick coming from the motor. 4 of these cylinders no longer work at all because in 2009 that special law was passed that now requires all vehicles to have emissions check or an emissions system to keep them from polluting the environment as much as they did before. While this might be a positive for some, for people that cannot afford the cars that cost on average $4,000 more according to EPA.gov to purchase a car that is made after the year 2009 with the emissions, that's a big problem because not everyone can afford to do that. So the real question is, was this regulation worth it? Is this doing enough to help the environment to cost people this much money, this much frustration with their vehicles that are now blowing up? That question is yet to be answered. The United States also covers a number of pollution regulations that have completely got rid of things that being made in the United States anymore. 2 years ago, the last lead smelting plant in the country shut down. I believe it was in North Dakota. There will never be another one in the United States again unless regulation is decreased. This is actually getting out of control. If you ask some people, there are so many regulations that it is almost impossible for factories to smelt anything anymore, including steel, which is a big industry, especially close to us. If there comes a time where regulation is so heavy, steel manufacturers will move out of the country, costing Americans hundreds and thousands of jobs and potentially their livelihood. Overall, the question that you at home should think about, and if anyone important in the government is watching this, you should think about, are the regulations worth it? Are they helping enough? Are they hurting enough people and helping the environment enough to balance out? Hopefully one day we'll find out. Thanks for watching. Thank you.